thanks for joining me. I'm Sasha. Look what I found. I found a really beautiful desk at a thrift store for 15 bucks, so I'm really excited about it. And it actually has a lot of details that I want to show you. It has carving here. It's not very good carving, so I think I'm going to have to go over it with the Dremel to kind of make it more distinct. But it's got really nice hardware, and I'll take a snapshot of that and show it to you. It's bright red, and the paint is kind of gloppy on it, so I'm going to go ahead and refinish it, but I think it's going to be really cool when I'm done. So stick around and watch this little transformation. So this is some of the detail I wanted to show you. See how it's got that paint kind of globbed on, but look at the hardware here. This is actually pretty pricey hardware if you've shopped for hardware. And also, look at the cute little spindly legs. I think that adds a lot of character. So the first thing I'm going to do is take out the drawers and start sanding. So I just wanted to show you some of the damage that I'm going to go ahead and fill with wood filler. You can see those little spots where the paint still looks bright, and that's because whoever did this used a semi-gloss paint, which I would not recommend for furniture. But I am going to come in with a wood filler because I'd like to have a smoother finish on it. So I'm going to get that with wood filler, but I just wanted to point out some of these detail areas, like down here for example. This is one of the ways you can tell the difference between a really nice piece that's been well done and something that's been, or at least has the appearance of being slopped together. So you don't want to get lazy when it comes to your detail work, such as the paint here. I need to make sure that it doesn't get glumped in the corner, and I'll show you that when I'm painting. Okay, but over here, when it came to sanding these spindles, it was quite a lot of work, really labor intensive. But if I didn't sand that down, I would really not get a good finish at all. So it was well worth it. So I'm just going to get a little bit of wood filler on my putty knife. Okay, just need a little bit, and you just kind of push it in at an angle into those holes, and then go over it until it's as flush as you can get it. Something else I'm going to fill in here, you can see this trim piece at the front of the desk. Okay, see that? The trim piece is actually not flush with the top of the desk. It has this crack here, and I'm going to go ahead and fill that because in a desk I would think that you want a completely smooth surface. You don't want an area where dirt can get caught and things like that. So I'm convinced that someone took cover behind this desk in a shotgun fight, I think, because there's no other way to explain all the perfectly exact same dents in this desk and the drawers and everywhere. They're everywhere. So I did have to invest a lot of time in the filling of the holes and sanding them down. But now I have all my prep done and I'm ready to start painting. So we're going to do as thin of a coat as we can with this for our first coat. Always, of course, using flat paint. Make sure we don't get any globs. I usually get them and then I go after them and wipe them out. There we go. And that's perfectly fine that we can see through it, because we want a really thin coat on this first go round. Now you'll notice whenever I paint furniture, I always lift it off the ground so that I can get the edges really well. In case it needs to go on a hard floor instead of carpet, these edges need to be nicely finished. I'm going to go ahead and show you how I do my detail areas. I go ahead and glop it in there, whatever you need to do to make sure you get the paint everywhere first, up in there. Sometimes it's best to start with a fresh spongy if you're doing detail areas, because if your sponge is too full of paint, it's not stiff enough to get in there. So after I get all my coverage that I need to get, alright, then I can start to smooth out, and I just go over it and kind of spread out the paint so I don't have any large glumps. I'm sure there's a better word than glumps, but I can't think of it right now. And another thing, when you're painting like this, you never want to go like this over an edge like that. If you're going to approach an edge like that, you always want to go off the edge. That way you don't get a buildup of paint right here. So I don't want to go that way, I want to go that way. Alright, here's another detail area. This spindle. You can see I have a little bit of paint there. Okay, so I just have to make sure I have the coverage that I need in all these little nooks and crannies. Okay, alright, so now I have the coverage. So now I'm going to go in real light and just spread it out and get rid of any buildup areas. This is really important if I want it to look nice instead of, you know, like I used way too much paint. There. So I did want to show you one thing I changed on the drawer. This one had the big wood carvings on it, which I like carved wood, but not typically when it's painted. And this is going in my daughter's room, and she said it looked like a creepy octopus. So anyway, I guess we just did away with it. So I had my husband pry it off for me, and I filled all the holes. Do you see what I mean about the shotgun holes? Look at that. Crazy. So anyway, the drawers will be super easy, but I'm going to do a first coat on those, and then it'll be time to second coat. So I ended up with a change of plans. When I started sanding, this is what happened. Well, this is intentional, but it didn't start out that way. And what I could do, I could still get a smooth factory-like finish. What I would have to do is I would sand everything with the 220 grit sandpaper, and I would get about this result that you're seeing right here. And then I would paint it again, and then I would sand it again, and paint it again, and sand it again. Okay, so I'd be looking at least 2 more coats with sanding between. And I felt like this kind of subtle distressing actually worked with the piece. So it works out for me to where I can finally be done sanding. And I think it looks good. But if I did want the factory smooth finish, I could get it. It would just be 2 more coats of paint and about 3 more sanding bouts. So I've actually had to do 3 coats instead of 2. And now I'm going to start sanding. This is a fine grit 220 sandpaper, and this is just to get a really smooth surface for the clear coat. And you hardly use any pressure. And it's okay that it starts to look lighter than the rest. That will come out when you put the clear coat on, or rather you won't be able to see it. So now I'm going to go ahead and do my clear coat, which on this piece is a satin, polyacrylic clear satin finish. Just smooth it out, make sure there's no bubbles. And sometimes when I get, I don't know if you can see them, but I've got a few air bubbles, I just kind of keep using this same loaded brush until it kind of thins itself out. With light pressure, making sure that I look at different angles and make sure that I got it all. So I finished the desk and I really like it. I'm happy with it. I have just touches of the red that still come through in the distressing, and I think that really looks good with the teal color. And I ended up replacing the hardware, even though I liked the old hardware. My daughter didn't, and it's going in her room. So this is the finished product, and I hope you had fun watching. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.